he can't say that the Prime Minister lied.
I'm going to ask Mr. Brock just to be a little more judicious in his words. Thank you.
The Prime Minister was deceitful to Canadians, Mr. Chair.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. As everyone knows, Justin Trudeau absolutely loves to go on vacation. And according to a National Post article from this past November, he's taken 680 personal days since coming into office in 2015. And as everybody knows, he recently took a trip to Jamaica. What seems to coincide with him taking vacations, though, is that he also lies about them.
Let's take a look.
Trudeau's vacations getting him in trouble yet again. Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. I really do wonder why Justin Trudeau even bothers taking vacations. We know he likes them. We know he likes taking lots of them and to expensive places, but they continually get him into trouble. The latest one being his trip to Prospect Estate, a former slave plantation in Jamaica, where he stayed in a villa that cost $7,000 US per night during the Christmas season. That works out to $63,000 US for his 9-night stay, or $84,000 Canadian. That is a staggering figure. But Justin Trudeau has made some odd comments, or at least his office has. First, before he left on the vacation, his office said that he would pay for his accommodation. Then they said, oh no, he stayed at no cost. Then they said he was staying with a friend. And they've tried to defend this in two ways, by saying the ethics commissioner pre-cleared the vacation, which the commissioner's office says they don't do, and they've claimed it is a gift from a friend, therefore acceptable. Does any of this add up?
Trudeau defends free Jamaica vacation as MPs vote for ethics commissioner to testify. Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said on Wednesday that he stayed with friends, quote, like many Canadian families, end quote, did over the holidays during his Christmas vacation to Jamaica, an $84,000 gift of a free holiday at a luxury resort owned by a friend of his late father's. Trudeau defended the trip at a news conference in New Brunswick, while MPs voted on Wednesday to bring the Ethics Commissioner before the Ethics Committee to discuss the rules around gifts, vacation, and travel in the Conflict of Interest Act.
Quote, like many Canadian families, we stayed with friends for the Christmas vacation. All the rules were followed, end quote, said Trudeau in response to a reporter's question about whether he would conduct himself differently in the future when it comes to his vacations. Trudeau vacationed in Jamaica with his family from December 26 to January 4th at the Prospect Estate Resort owned by the Green family. Peter Green was a close friend of Pierre Elliott Trudeau's. The Prime Minister's office initially said only that Trudeau was traveling to Jamaica on holiday and would be paying his own costs. After the National Post inquired about the trip, after discovering the cost of the stay, the PMO issued a quote-unquote clarification that the Trudeau family had vacationed, quote, at no cost, end quote. Although Trudeau's office said the ethics commissioner had cleared the trip, Conservative MPs are demanding to know whether the commissioner was properly informed that Trudeau and his family were getting a stay at a luxury resort for free.
This all culminated in an emergency meeting of the Ethics Committee to examine the inconsistencies in statements from the Prime Minister's office and whether or not he deliberately deceived the Ethics Commissioner.
The committee is meeting at the request of 4 members of the committee to discuss their request to undertake a study of the Prime Minister's vacation to Jamaica. I'd like to remind all members not to put their earpieces near the microphones, as it causes feedback and could cause potential injury to our interpreters. With that being said, the floor is open. Mr. Barrett, go ahead, please.
Well, thanks very much, Chair, and good morning to you and colleagues. I hope that everyone had a restful time with family and was able to catch up with and connect with their communities. It was a challenging Christmas for many Canadians, and we saw record food bank use and, of course, people facing challenges with their home heating bills. I just want to quickly go over a couple headlines, and then I have a motion that I'd like to put forward to the committee chair. some of the headlines that we saw over this Christmas were high prices, tight budgets have Canadians trimming how they'll celebrate this Christmas. Montreal Soup Kitchen may have to stop feeding homeless for the first time since 1877. All I'm doing is working and paying bills, why some are leaving Canada for more affordable countries, and the rising cost of living means this mom of three goes hungry so her kids can eat. So it has been a challenging time for many people, and it's, of course, heartbreaking to see the struggles that our fellow Canadians are going through. Two more headlines. Trudeau's office won't answer questions on $84,000 vacation. Trudeau given free stay at $9,300 a night luxury Jamaican villa over Christmas holidays. And this is, of course, what brings us here. And those numbers are, of course, staggering when we have an $84,000 vacation, when the median Canadian household income is about $70,000. And the problem begins with the first answer or first explanation that the Prime Minister's office gave about this vacation. And this isn't a question about a Prime Minister being deserving of a vacation or anyone being deserving of a vacation if they're able to afford it and they've got the time and their health. That's wonderful that they're able to do that. The problem is that the first answer that the Prime Minister's office gave to Canadians about this was that the Prime Minister was paying for the vacation. And it wasn't until media followed up and learned about the cost of the destination and asked who was paying for it. And the answer was that, in fact, the Prime Minister was not paying for this this vacation. So we started with the Prime Minister saying he was paying for it, and then saying that it was being gifted to him.
And this becomes yet another example of why Canadians don't trust Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He is a serial liar. If he had said right at the beginning, I'm being given a gift to stay at a resort, people may not have liked it, but it's better than lying about it and then finding out. He had the opportunity to be first here. And the first thing he chose to do is lie. Why? Because he figured, well, people won't like that. So I'm just going to say that I'm paying for it and they'll be none the wiser.
Well, of course people won't like that. As Mr. Barrett had said, the average Canadian family income is $70,000 a year. Trudeau's vacation cost $14,000 more than that, and he was given it for free. Like it was nothing. Like, this guy has so much money, $84,000 as a gift is just expected. I don't know. Right.
And for him to say, well, you know, like many Canadian families, we stayed with friends. No, not like many Canadian families. Give me a break.
How many Canadian families couldn't afford to travel this Christmas?
How many Canadian families couldn't afford to eat this Christmas?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, and I don't mean travel as in go somewhere fancy. I mean to go visit family, maybe even an hour away. Maybe they couldn't afford a train ticket, a plane ticket, gas, doesn't matter. Like, things were very bad for many Canadians this Christmas, and our Prime Minister's just been given an $84,000 vacation.
Right. Like, so somebody gave him a gift, the value of which is, 20% more than the median annual income for Canadian families. Talk about tone deaf.
That's a remarkable gift, $84,000. And the question of whether or not a Prime Minister should be accepting gifts worth $84,000 is one that perhaps an eventual study at this committee could consider, if it's ever appropriate. But the story changed again, and the Prime Minister offered a third version of events, saying that he was staying with friends at their place and that he wasn't paying for it. So we know that his office said, the Prime Minister's office said that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner cleared the vacation. The Ethics Commissioner has since said that that's not a function that they provide. They don't pre-clear vacations. and the ethics commissioner cannot release the correspondence between the Prime Minister and his office without the authority to do that, or an instruction to do that, a production order to do that, and that can be resolved, of course, by the Prime Minister just furnishing, Parliament, Canadians with that correspondence, releasing it, demonstrating that that the third story that we got from the Prime Minister was, in fact, the same story that he gave the Ethics Commissioner. The question is, was the Ethics Commissioner deceived or misled in any way? And so we need to get to the bottom of that. The best way to do that would be to have the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner come to this committee. I think that we could look at a number of things, but the precision, of what we need to accomplish. The reason that we're here is to deal with this specific event, this $84,000 gift. It happened to take the form of a vacation, and so that's why I have the following motion to move.
Okay, so what is this all about? Is Trudeau going to go to jail or vacation? No, he's not. But what this is about is the Conservatives are taking a opportunity here that Trudeau has presented them unwittingly. Like, I think this kind of proves to everybody he's not the brightest bulb in the drawer when it comes to political strategy. He doesn't know how to be prime minister very well.
No, I think the last 8 years have shown that.
Yeah. But there are some people out there that think he is, very adept and, everything's part of the plan. If it was part of the plan, he wouldn't, be making these silly mistakes about, going on vacation and lying about it. Like, that's the thing. So what's going on here? Well, the Conservatives seem to be lining up all of their big guns prior to the sitting of Parliament. Something's coming, folks. Something is coming. You have the ArriveCan stuff that happened this week. 2 different witnesses, or 3 different witnesses. Bunch of stuff happened. That is now locked into the chamber. You have the petition. We haven't heard about the petition. There hasn't been, nobody has said anything about it since it ended at the end of December. So they have that locked into the chamber. They have this ethics committee meeting on Trudeau's vacation, where what they're going to try to do is see if there is a possible ethics violation, and then he can be, quote unquote, convicted again for lying to the ethics commissioner. That would be another bullet locked into the chamber. And the Conservatives met at another emergency meeting today, called by the Conservatives, about $150 million given to another organization during COVID. So that's another one that they've locked in the chamber. They have all these different avenues just lined up for the beginning of Parliament. Why? Because they're going to hit him hard. And what happens at the beginning of Parliament, Fox?
So the week of January the 29th, the public inquiry is beginning. They're going to be interviewing people. So that's going to be very interesting to see what fruit that bears.
So you have the public inquiry, you have all these scandals. All of this is just lined up for a major political event coming in February of this year. So all of this seems to be lined up to put as much pressure on Justin Trudeau and thereby as much pressure on Jagmeet Singh as possible. Because confidence votes coming in March, folks, with the budget. That's where this is all lining up. So with regards to this specific scandal, assuming it is, they are essentially saying that we don't believe that Justin Trudeau didn't lie to the ethics commissioner. And if it was proven that he in fact lied, then that could be yet another quote unquote conviction of violating ethics laws. Now, that doesn't really mean anything substantial in terms of monetary penalty or anything like that, but it is one more recent example that they can really throw at Justin Trudeau to kind of finish it off.
Especially when they're campaigning for an election.
Right.
That the interim conflict of interest and ethics commissioner appear at the earliest opportunity regarding the Prime Minister's vacation to Jamaica.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. The motion has been moved. The clerk has advised me that she has sent it to the members of the committee in both official languages. And I suspect, Mr. Barrett, just for clarity, that that's for one meeting, correct? Just yes, for one meeting. Okay, good. The motion has been moved. I've got Mr. Brock, followed by Ms. Khalid, and then Ms. Damoff after that. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to start at the outset by wishing all my colleagues a Happy New Year. I hope that everyone had an enjoyable, relaxing time away from the Hill. A few of us, unfortunately, are back earlier than we anticipated, but this is an important issue, not only for parliamentarians, but it's an important issue for Canadians. As my colleague, Mr. Barrett, has indicated, 2024 has not started off on a new footing. It's essentially the same sort of issues that Canadians are dealing with in 2023 and 2022, and that's the issue of affordability. I know personally many members of my constituency who wrote to me and expressed their astonishment that how tone deaf this Prime Minister and this Liberal government was in light of all of the issues that Canadians are facing, that he would find it appropriate to accept an $84,000 gift for an extremely extravagant holiday in Jamaica. I think we are all of the same belief, and I believe all Canadians are of the same belief, Mr. Chair, that the Prime Minister is indeed worthy of a vacation. He is indeed worthy of spending quality time with his family. He was born of privilege. He maintains a lifestyle of privilege. It's now no shock to anyone here at this committee or in this House or across Canada that he is well connected with terms of friends and other associates around the world, and he probably enjoys staying at locations that offer some of the finer things in life. We don't begrudge that as a starting point.
We do.
Yeah, we do. But why is Brock saying all those things?
So that the Liberals can't come after them.
Right. Remember, be first.
Yeah, so the Liberals can't be like, oh, well, you know, are you saying that Trudeau doesn't deserve a vacation? Are you saying that there's, you know, a cap on how much he's allowed to spend?
Right. So they are diffusing all of the potential arguments that they know that the Liberals are going to be throwing at them before they're even thrown at them. Because if they you know, essentially say that again, it makes them look even more ridiculous and incompetent than they already are. Like, we just said that. Weren't you listening? And then you know, it actually looks worse on the Liberals for even raising that point. So they're getting ahead of that and making sure they're really sticking to a procedural issue, which the Liberals can't argue about. Right? Like, what are the Liberals going to say? Oh, well, you know, that was completely fine to break a parliamentary process. No, you can't say that. So they're getting ahead of all of these silly political arguments by stating them right up front and diffusing it because they know it's coming.
What we do begrudge is how a particular issue such as this has blown up to such an extent that it now has the makings of a scandal. This was a really non-issue from the get-go. If the Prime Minister and his office were completely transparent as to who sourced this particular vacation, how it was communicated to the Prime Minister, all the terms associated with he accepting the offer to stay at this luxurious villa, had he been upfront with Parliament, had he been upfront with Canadians right from the outset, I don't think we'd be here today. But the Prime Minister and his office have compounded this particular issue as such that we as parliamentarians are here asking for clarification. And you know, Mr. Chair, this isn't a one-off. This is a pattern of conduct with this Prime Minister and his office to mislead Canadians. Setting aside the controversy surrounding his trip to the Aga Khan Island and how he was found guilty of breaching the ethic guidelines, he promised Canadians in the House that he would do better, that he would communicate in advance with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner and be upfront. Because the hallmark of the Trudeau brand, the hallmark of the Trudeau government, is transparency.
Well done on raising that. Because that's what Trudeau was saying all the time in his 2015 campaign. That you know, the Harper government was, you know, they hide everything from Canadians and they're so vague and it's just under a cloud. And a Trudeau government, a Liberal government, you know, we will be the most transparent government Canadians have ever seen.
And we'll never use prorogation as a means to diffuse a scandal.
Right. So it's good that Brock is reminding everybody this was the brand. And in reminding everybody what the brand is, he is reinforcing his current brand, which is what the brand is not. Meaning, it is not a brand of transparency. It is a brand of deceiving, of lies, and of obstruction wherever possible as it relates to communicating with Canadians.
That's what he promised Canadians during the 2015 general election. You vote for me, you will have the most open, transparent, and accountable government this country has ever seen. Has that happened, Mr. Chair? Absolutely not. I really don't know if anyone on the Liberal bench, and certainly the Prime Minister, even understand the definition of transparency. But most recently, the government has shuffled some positions. One of the shuffling of positions was the House Leader, the government House Leader, who is now occupying that position by the name of Steve McKinnon. Steve McKinnon was asked by the press with respect to this vacation. He indicated as follows. The Prime Minister, and this is a quote, the Prime Minister followed all the rules and in fact got his travel plans pre-approved by the Commissioner. We know that's a lie. It's misleading. It was deliberate. It was intentional on Mr. McKinnon's part to mislead Canadians. Because now we know that that office, the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, does not pre-approve and give permission to vacation. The issue is whether or not the form of a gift qualifies as an acceptable one under the Act. To clarify, he says, the office, no, I'm sorry, that's the quote from the Ethics Commissioner. But he went on in a different interview, this is Steve McKinnon, the government House Leader, and said as follows. I think Canadians don't want to deny the Prime Minister the ability to take a Christmas vacation with his family, and that's what he did.
Wait a second. I thought Karina Gold was the House Leader for the Liberals.
Yeah. So Karina Gold was the House Leader, but she is no longer the House Leader, most likely because, you know, she's probably about to have her baby. So so temporarily, it's going to be this Stephen McKinnon individual until Karina Gold returns from her mat leave. But by the time she comes back, there may be no Liberal government, so we'll see.
McKinnon told reporters last week, all of the rules have been followed, and the law has, as one of its fundamental pillars, transparency, which is, of course, the reason why we're discussing this today. The Prime Minister has acted transparently. Are we to accept the House Leader's word for that? I think that would be negligent. I don't think we'd be doing our job as His Majesty's loyal opposition to accept that at face value, in light of the fact that the office has since rebutted the position taken by the Prime Minister and his office that this was pre-approved. There's a lot of smoke here, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure there is a fire that's burning, Mr. Chair, that we need to find out its source. As I indicated, this is not a one-off. It is a series of missteps by this government. I talked about the Aga Khan vacation. We then had the dress-up clown show in India. We then had the issue surrounding the very first Truth and Reconciliation Day. Again, one of the hallmarks of the Trudeau brand and our Prime Minister in the 2015 election was his pronouncement that there was no other relationship that was more important to Canada than its relationship with Indigenous Canadians. He created the very first Truth and Reconciliation Day after the discovery of the unmarked graves in Kamloops. This was an important milestone in the history of this country in an effort to broker reconciliation between non-Indigenous and Indigenous alike. What did the Prime Minister do? The Prime Minister instructed his office to lie to Canadians, to say that he was in Canada engaging in private meetings, when in fact some sleuths in the Canadian public were able to track his flight and realize he wasn't in Ottawa. He was en route to BC to take a surfing vacation.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Damoff, on your point of order. And as it relates to the standing orders, I'd like to just some clarification on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, twice now the member has said that the Prime Minister lied, and I think we all know that that is not allowed under parliamentary rules. So I just wondered if you could remind him that he can't say that the Prime Minister lied. If that could just, you could remind the honourable member of that, Chair. Thank you.
You gotta love Liberal priorities. Right?
Well, it's because she knows what we know, that all this stuff that Brock is rattling off, it doesn't have anything to do with the current breach of ethics. It's all stuff that's happened before. And I think the reason that Brock is saying all this stuff is to remind Canadians, hey, do you remember when your Prime Minister did this? Do you remember when he did this? Do you remember when he did this? And do you remember when he said he wasn't going to do any of that stuff anymore? That's what this is for. And that Liberal MP knows that this is all for show.
Well, I would also say that in a way it does have to do with the current one, because what Brock is also doing in this, in addition to reminding Canadians, is he's establishing a foundation as to why they should be pursuing this as a ethics investigation. And why is that? Because he's demonstrating that, this wasn't just some misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake or a miscommunication. In that, he said he was going to pay for it, and then he didn't, and then he was going to get given a gift. He's saying that he has lied repeatedly about his vacations since he took office. So because of that pattern of lying almost every single time he goes on vacation, then it is incumbent upon the committee to investigate this, as it appears that he has indeed lied again. And this is not a one-off. It's not a one-off mistake. It just reinforces a further pattern in deceit when Trudeau goes on vacation. So it's both informing Canadians about all of the previous lies and making sure that they understand what the new brand of the Liberal Party of Canada is, which is one of control and deceit and censorship. And it's also to ensure that the investigation can move forward because it's providing foundation.
Thank you, Ms. Damoff. I'm going to ask Mr. Brock just to be a little more judicious in his words. Thank you.
The Prime Minister was deceitful to Canadians, Mr. Chair. So instead of telling the truth that he, in fact, was in Ottawa, engaged in private meetings, he furthered his own selfish private interests in taking a surfing vacation on the very first day that he created. It was embarrassing. and it was shameful, and it was an event that should not have happened. So again, these are things that I wanted to bring to the attention of this committee, that this Jamaican Christmas vacation is not a one-off. It displays a pattern of miscommunication and deceit by the Prime Minister's office, giving 3 different versions of the truth as to what they communicated to the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. And we as parliamentarians, but more importantly Canadians from coast to coast to coast, need some daylight shed on this issue. And for all of those reasons, I support my colleague's motion.
Mr. Barrett, I'm going to go to you on the main motion as amended, sir.
Thanks, thanks, Chair. So I do want to just emphasize that with the amendment that happened, you previously had clarified that the subject of the Jamaica gift would be fair game for that meeting. So can you confirm that that's what you said?
I think that's precisely what I said.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Vilmure's sub-amendment addresses that particular issue. Gifts, vacations, and travel. Okay, so to be very clear, that would be part of it. Mr. Barrett.
So thank you for that clarification, and Mr. Vilmure's sub-amendment was very helpful because this is really a question about gifts. This is an $84,000 gift, and I think it's important to re-emphasize what Mr. Blakey had said about not expecting that things were going to change anytime soon. And I want to offer you a quote from today from the Prime Minister. When asked about this, he said, and the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "I know that over the holidays many Canadians stayed with friends, and I don't see any questions about that." End quote. Well, that demonstrates a complete either a disingenuous response or a complete lack of understanding of why this is an issue. It's an $84,000 gift to a sitting Prime Minister, a Minister of the Crown. So the precision in the motion as amended to talk about both the code and the act are fine, because MP travel is not the same as ministerial or prime ministerial travel. So now that that's opened up to include both, that's fine to have that conversation. But it is also a question, not just that the Prime Minister went somewhere. It's that he accepted an $84,000 gift. He didn't sleep on a couch at Uncle Buck's place. So
we skipped over a lot of comments by Liberals and NDP. You're welcome. So essentially, the good thing is the motion is it's making its way around. There were some amendments added onto it that make specific call outs to what can be discussed at the meeting with the commissioner, and Barrett's just calling out what Trudeau had said yesterday. He's like, well, lots of Canadians spent time with families, and I don't see anybody talking about that. It's like, really?
That's so flippant.
It's flippant, and it just, again, yeah, you are equating, Uncle Bob and Aunt Sue coming over and having Christmas dinner, not giving any presents because nobody can afford any, to you going to your buddies and getting an $84,000 luxury stay. Like that's what you're equating this to. I don't see anybody talking about, like, you are so out of touch, and this is why Canadians hate you.
Here's the crazy thing to me, that Justin Trudeau or the PMO or whoever it happens to be doesn't see an issue with an $84,000 gift. Essentially, it's not a cash gift. It's access to this resort, but it's still a gift. And it's funny because we had met with our MP over the Christmas break, and we went to lunch, and we offered to pay for lunch because there's 2 of us and 1 of him, and he had said, as long as it's not more than $40, because that's the cutoff. So he knows the cutoff for accepting gifts for him is $40. And then the Prime Minister's office is like $84,000. Well, you know, that's just staying with a friend.
It's not over 90,000, so it's apparently it's fine.
Like, that's insane.
Like, but this is it. You know, a Conservative MP can't accept more than a $40 meal being bought for them, but Trudeau can accept an $84,000 vacation. Something's wrong with this picture, folks.
And it wasn't over $40 because, I mean, it was lunch.
Right.
So.
Like, I think he
no
had
issues.
Like a burger or something.
So I appreciate the amendments to it, but I really don't think that the seriousness of this has landed for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I hope that hearing from the Ethics Commissioner will help reinforce the legal obligations that designated public office holders have with respect to the Act. The question from Ms. Khalid earlier about correspondence with the Ethics Commissioner is important because what we're looking for is confirmation that what the Prime Minister's office ultimately said to Canadians on their third attempt was the truth, and if that's the truth, that's the same truth, if there can be more than one version of it, that was given to the Ethics Commissioner's office. So those are confidences that belong to the Prime Minister, and only he can disclose what was said between the Ethics Commissioner's office and his office. So I with that in mind, and knowing that the Ethics Commissioner can't speak to things that are protected by those confidences, I'd move the following motion. The committee order all correspondence, including emails, text messages, messages sent on any electronic messaging applications, phone call logs, handwritten notes, memorandums, briefing materials, any documents produced regarding the Prime Minister's travel to Prospect Estate in Jamaica in 2023-24 and 22-23, and that the Prime Minister's office and Ethics Commissioner's office provide the clerk of the committee with these documents within 7 days of this motion being adopted. Chair, I've circulated that in both official languages to the clerk, and I think that only with that information can we have a fulsome conversation with the Ethics Commissioner. The agreed upon timeline to have that hearing once the House resumes would allow for this information to be received by the clerk prior to that, and I think that because there's been a change in the story 3 times, that we get that we find out if there's been a deception that was made to the Ethics Commissioner.
So they are asking for everything, every single point of communication that Trudeau had with the Ethics Commissioner for both this trip and the previous one to the exact same place.
Well, good, because it sounds like he lied, because it sounds like the Ethics Commissioner doesn't pre-approve things.
I think what the Conservatives think is that Trudeau didn't check with the Commissioner's office at all.
Yeah, that's possible.
And again, look at the timing of this. The timing of this is right when Canadians are going through a cold snap in Canada. Look at what happened out in Alberta in terms of, not enough power because they had to shut down all of their coal fire plants. So they didn't have actually enough power to serve the province during the, extreme cold warning.
Now, could you imagine if all you had was a heat pump?
Which means you don't have anything.
Right. I know it's a separate issue for another day, but I cannot believe the Liberals think heat pumps are a solution.
Right.
Anyways.
So you have them requesting all of this. The hearing is going to happen when Parliament resumes. So all of this is just going to be blowing up at the same time. And if they can get this Ethics Commissioner in, that's going to be a very interesting discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the chance to speak in and weigh in on Mr. Barrett's motion here today. And a few points I think are important for Canadians to understand here. And I think, frankly, to refute what the Liberals and the NDP are offering in terms of the standard that could be set here. I think it's important to remind ourselves, particularly the Liberals and NDP, that we're here in the circumstance here of this issue and another scandal involving Prime Minister taking vacations or taking gifts, in this case, a free gift of a vacation luxury rental around $85,000, is the fact that his story in the Prime Minister's office story has changed 3 times. Right. And let me give an example, Mr. Chair, of this, or the concern or frustration that I have with this, is that if I go to the Ethics Commissioner, or the Prime Minister goes to the Ethics Commissioner and says, I'm taking a vacation, am I allowed? And gets a yes, then they go and say, well, we already got pre-approval by the Ethics Commissioner. The question now, and particularly important for Canadians, is the fact that the story changed 3 times. It's important for Canadians in this committee to know and to see the documentation of what has happened and the changing story. What exactly did they provide in context to the Ethics Commissioner?
Sorry, Mr. Duncan. We have a point of order from Ms. Khalid on the standing orders. Which one is it?
What the heck could she be calling a point of order for? Oh, wait, nothing. Doesn't like what he's saying.
Yeah, that's it.
And I like Broussard because he's like, you have a point of order? According to which one? Which standing order are you referring to?
Well, and that's it. He doesn't let the Liberals get away with just calling points of order to slow things down because they feel like it. He wants to make sure it's an actual point of order.
It's on, I just wanted to clarify one thing, that the Ethics Commissioner does not give clearance. They provide advice on how to. So I would just like to advise the member on that.
Great point. Go ahead, Mr. Duncan.
Well, I find that very interesting because it was the government House Leader that used the word pre-approved, checked with the Ethics Commissioner, got advice, got guidance. But I think Hey, Mr. Duncan has the floor. Go ahead, Mr. Duncan, please.
I love it. I love the hypocrisy. So the Liberals come in and say, oh, well, yeah, the Ethics Commissioner doesn't do that. And the Conservatives remind them, well, you should remind your House Leader colleague because he's the one who said that he got pre-approved in the first place. You dolts. And then when he calls them out on that, they don't like it. Quiet. Conservatives have the floor. Adults are talking.
Especially telling that the Liberals are riled up about this because the Prime Minister could proactively table the information to this committee to clarify if there's nothing to see here, the trust but verify, go and show what he asked and what he provided the information to the Ethics Commissioner. His story changed to Canadians 3 different times. What did he provide the Ethics Commissioner? Did his story to the Ethics Commissioner change 3 times? And I think that's very important. So if the Liberals are going to fight over advice or guidance or using the government House Leader as pre-clearance or pre-check, whatever it may be, the Prime Minister could address this proactively and provide those documents to show clarity and to put an end to part of this. And he refuses to do so, and now the Liberals and NDP are refusing to do the same thing. So I would just say, Mr. Chair, to refute the points of the Liberals and NDP here, this is not a blanket opening of the advice and being provided to any MP. We're doing this, and we're here at this meeting today, and we're having this conversation in these meetings because the Prime Minister changed his story 3 times. And it's important to know when they said they talked to, whatever term they want to use to the Ethics Commissioner, it's important to know the context or the lack thereof the Prime Minister gave. If the Prime Minister and his office gave the same changed story 3 times that he did to Canadians, there's a problem here. We deserve to see the paper trail, and there should be no reason in this case, because the Prime Minister, again, changed his story 3 times, he should proactively provide it if there's nothing to hide. The fact they're blocking this and hiding behind things, I think, has Canadians wondering what exactly is up.
Okay, so what happened during this meeting? So the good news is that they have asked the Ethics Commissioner to come to the meeting to talk to committee, and that was the first motion that Barrett put forward. That motion passed. The second motion, which I think is the most important one, which was to order all correspondence between Trudeau and the Ethics Commissioner for both trips, that was defeated. So, you know, that's kind of where that sits. I'm not sure where this is going to leave them, because when the Ethics Commissioner comes into committee, I don't know if he's going to be able to talk completely openly about this or not. I'm hoping that he is going to be able to talk to committee about this and provide some answers as to what Trudeau said to him and what he didn't. But at least they're going to be moving forward with this. And here's the thing: like, the Liberals didn't really have a choice; they had to kind of move forward with this, but in the least exposed way possible, which is why they voted against all of the documentation to be provided. Because if they voted against this, and the NDP voted against this, then the Conservatives just have one more thing to go running to the public for, right? So there's going to be an investigation. It's not going to be long, but it doesn't need to be long. All it needs to include is, getting some sort of facts out of that ethics commissioner to validate or invalidate what happened, right? So that's going to happen sometime after Parliament sits, and we will be waiting until that opportunity to give you the next update on the $84,000 Jamaica scandal.
How many scandals are we up to now?
I've lost count, and I don't think there's any point in counting anymore because we know there's going to be more.